If you get Kyle Tucker, you must sign him. If you elect to use what he's waving the flag for to build the farm system up, and then you trade your first-round pick the very next year, you better sign that player for multiple years. You cannot have him on a one-year deal. And if you do that, you can't trade Cam Smith. So everything he tells you is a lie. It's a lie. Now that the college basketball season, just as the tournament left, and I'm not watching Bulls or the Blackhawks because I don't have Chiz, and I need my Cubs to be good.
Yeah.
I haven't really been pulling for a team except for some collegiate teams that we root for since Bears season ended. And we all know what that put us through.
Yeah.
We could use a winning season. And for White Sox fans, obviously you're not going to get a winning season. but if you improve by 20, it's still a bad season, but I think there's growth there. It's weird though but it is true.
He just iced that cake for you there, Meller. Silvy just iced that cake.
Meller, if I told you that the White Sox would improve by 20, is it a successful season or not?
Yeah, I think you'd have to say yes. Based on what happened last year, if you can improve your win-loss record by 20 games,
that's a 50% improvement of your winning total. That would definitely be a step forward.
But you'd still lose 100.
That's okay.
True, but
it's amazing.
You're 50% better than you were the year before with regard to your wins.
This year's about growth.
Yeah. All right, so I want to play the Tom Ricketts. I talked about this on Friday with Carm. Mm-hmm. We didn't have a full show, so I want you to weigh in, and I have more thoughts on it too because it made me angry.
Yeah,
and I want to know what is on top of your fan brain most, Cubs fans. Is it the season? Is it the immediacy of the season? Because I believe there are so many good stories on this Cubs team. There's so many good, interesting things to watch for that we don't know how it's going to pan out. But I also think that there is a lot of stress because of the way Tom Ricketts is running the ball club now. So this was Ricketts last week. And was this originally on CNBC? Is this where this aired, Meller?
I believe so.
Okay, here it is.
Using the word break even wasn't the way I wanted to say that. Just want people to know that every dollar that's spent at the ballpark goes back into putting a more competitive team on the field. Away from that, everyone knows, every Cub fan knows that we've invested roughly $1 billion into Wrigley Field itself and the neighborhood around. So it's not a matter of us not investing. We are putting the best team on the field that we can every year. But there are teams that have resources that we don't, and nothing we can do about that. Fortunately for baseball, player development is as important as how much you're spending on free agents. So, we just keep grinding on and doing the blocking and tackling that build the organization from the bottom up, and hopefully will make us competitive on a consistent basis.
Okay, I've had a swing at this, and I have lots of thoughts, but you tell me what you...
Well, I've always had the same response, is that the ratio doesn't work for me. When you have the third most successful franchise with regard to revenue, and yet you are not even in the top 10 in payroll. That ratio doesn't work for me. I don't think the Cubs should be in the, hey, I want to be the D-backs category where get in and see if anything great can happen. I mean, it's great to get into the postseason, and baseball's a unique sport. Maybe you could get hot. Maybe you could, overachieve. But I don't think that's the path the Cubs should take with the size of the market that they're in. The $1 billion that you've spent on Wrigley in the neighborhood, I think is fabulous. I told you this 5 years ago or however many years ago it was. I said, you may not like your own. You remember this? This was 10 years ago maybe when Ricketts bought the team. I said, 5 years from now, you're going to love your baseball team. And they won a World Series, and the area around the ballpark is great. So many years later, I don't think that you can say, hey, we've spent $1 billion on the ballpark in the area around the ballpark and use that as an excuse for not being a top 5 salary team.
It's almost like he thought that would buy him way more gratitude for winning a World Series and rebuilding Wrigley, that if they went on a 5-year hiatus from the postseason, that he would be excused because of what they accomplished in 16 and how they rebuilt Wrigley.
Yeah, and I would ask you, you're the Cub fan. Would you, I mean, I think the place is glorious as few times as I've been around it, but I think they've done a brilliant job with it. I think the park looks good. I think the area around it looks good. If you were given the choice either or, I can spend more money on my payroll over here if I don't invest in the ballpark in the surrounding neighborhood, or some of your salary expenses are going to go down because we're investing in the ballpark in the neighborhood around. Which would you choose?
Of course, I would choose, but as you've always said, this isn't an either or.
Right, but that's my point is that you should your baseball team should not be negatively affected because you've invested so much in your park and the surrounding area. I'm just saying to you, if I was a fan, I'd be like, well, park is great. The surrounding neighborhood is great. But if this is the way you're going to run your business, I wish you would have just saved your money for the baseball team and we could have just kept everything around it normal.
Whenever we used to get the old school calls, I don't want jumbotrons, they used to say. I don't want ads inside Wrigley Field. Believe it or not, there once was a day where you could never find an ad inside of Wrigley Field. The only ad that you could see in the ballpark was the Torco ad, which was a sign above the right field, one of the rooftops. But inside, there was never, none of the gates had advertisements. And then one by one, advertisements started. They started putting stuff in the outfield, started putting stuff in the dugout. Now there are signs galore all over the place. And I was always like, you evolve or die. If you evolve, I want to make sure that that money is going back into the team and to what they could achieve on the field. Find the jumbotrons, but they're advertising. It's a way to get more advertising dollars. Just put it back in the ball club.
Yep.
I don't believe that ratio, like you said, about how much they draw versus how much they, where they are in payroll. I don't think that matches up.
No.
And that's what bothers me. Meller, can you play the back half of that too? Where I want to point out where he talks about the resources. And it's a two-thought approach when he talks about not having the resources, but then growing the team from within. And I want to give one example with one named player on this team on how he's doing the exact opposite.
Our strategy's been the same since day one, and that's be consistent and try to make the playoffs. In the NFL or the NBA, typically the team that had a better season had a better regular season almost always wins the playoff matchups. Things happen, upsets happen. In baseball, what we want to do is just be consistent. We want to win our division every year, get to the playoffs. And I can't do anything about what dollars other teams have, but what I can do is try to build an organization that keeps us consistently in that mix. And I think that this year, Jed Hoyer's done a pretty good job of bringing us back up from some couple bad years we had. But we have a really good farm system. We've supplemented it with several free agents over the last couple years. And I think that going to this year, we should be the team to beat in our division. And if we win our division, then anything can happen, and we believe we'll be back in the mix this year.
That wasn't the part I was talking about from the first bite. There was a part where he talks about how, he doesn't have the resources that other teams have. And then he says, but what we can do is the blocking and tackling of growing the team with prospects as well. And so what he's done with Kyle Tucker is he's taken a player who he can't afford to pay long term, and he gave away one of their top prospects for him. How does any of that work? If you get Kyle Tucker, you must sign him. If you elect to use what he's waving the flag for to build the farm system up, and then you trade your first-round pick the very next year, you better sign that player for multiple years. You cannot have him on a one-year deal. And if you do that, you can't trade Cam Smith.
No, those two
None
things,
of it makes sense.
No, they fight against one another.
They fight against one another.
Yeah.
So everything he tells you is a lie. It's a lie.
Did you want to hear that first bite again, Sylvia?
But the other part, that's real quick, that was the part that I was referencing as well about, hey, we want to win our division, which is great. You're playing probably outside of the American League Central, the easiest division in baseball, correct? And it's kind of the D-backs model, isn't it? The approach, hey, if we just get in, then anything can happen.
But they don't go for it. They don't trade away prospects for what I have had a biggest now, I'm excited for the Cubs season. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. There are a lot of great things. But what I always say is a common sense approach when it used to come with the Bulls with Gar and Pax. When it comes to the Bears, I ask this simple question. What's the plan? It's 3 words, or 4 what is the plan? You tell me what is the plan for the Cubs this year?
The plan for the Cubs is to win the division and then get lucky when they get into the postseason.
And then what happens when Kyle Tucker doesn't sign, when Ryan Presley doesn't sign because he's too old, when all these guys that you've got on 1-year deals aren't back next year, and you gave away Cody Bellinger for not one prospect? You gave him away. You didn't even get a prospect back. What's the like in 15, 14, 13, they had a plan that led to 15 and 16. We're gonna build it from within. When the prospects arrive, we're gonna spend big. We're gonna spend on Lester. We're gonna spend on Hayward. We're gonna spend on Zobrist. We're gonna make smart trades. What's the plan now? They're in go for it mode when they're not a go for it team.
I don't know. Like I said, their plan for 2025 is to get in and hopefully catch a heater. I don't think that's a long-term plan. That is an immediate plan.
You're right in that, Silvy, like Tom Ricketts, he's parroting what Theo Epstein said the moment he was introduced as the president of their baseball operations. What was it, 2014? 2013? Whenever Theo took over. He talked about how you want to, the goal is to be in the playoffs every year to give your team a shot at winning every year, because he understood there was a bit of randomness that comes into these short series when you build a baseball team for a 162-game grind, and then you get into the short playoff series, things are a little bit different. So Theo always preached the idea of getting into the playoffs year after year, and then hopefully one of those years
for consistent winning.
Yes, fortune favored you. And so Ricketts is saying that, but then he's also spinning it, because that hasn't really been the mantra of the Cubs over the last few years, right? Like, they've taken their lumps with the goal of always saying, hey, we're building this up long term. But then the Kyle Tucker trade, where you're trading off Cam Smith, who might have a very bright future. Ultimately, that's not really following along in the path that Theo laid out. If you're not going to sign Kyle Tucker long term,
that would be equitable, or it would be digestible if, in fact, they signed Tucker to an extended period of time.
Yes, of course. Then I'm all aboard. But I don't want to do both. I don't want to trade good prospects and then not sign the guys that you're getting back and only giving it a one shot because you're in CYA mode. Because you want to get back to try it 1 year. What I used to be critical of the Cubs under the Tribune ownership was their patchwork approach. Every year they would stick their finger in the dam and hope it would get them through 1994. 1995, 1996. They wouldn't build any form of long-term consistency. As Meller said, they ended that with Theo. But now it's like they're back to patchworking it. We'll get Tucker, but don't enjoy him because it's probably only going to be for a year. Who have they improved? We'll get a closer because we sucked as a team last year, but we're going to trade for a closer who lost his job and is 36 years old. How is that any form of sustainable success?
It's not. I mean,
if the Bears took that approach to free agency and trades, we would rip them.
Well, and if you're going to do that, at least be a top 5 salary, team.
Right.
I mean, at this point,
you're not spending, nor are you growing, and
right.
That's my biggest issue with what Ricketts says.
Like you haven't just played. Hey, we're playing for 2025 here, and let's see where it goes. You're 12th or 13th in salaries.
Yeah.
So you're in no man's land, hoping again that you'll get in, and then anything is possible.